This is going to be the most wonderful meeting tonight because I've seen Doug speak, and what's amazing about Doug is that you're an actual all-rounder. You can do it all, which is very rare to find in a person. Usually they're very good at something at the sacrifice of something else, whereas you've got the whole package. So I'm very happy to welcome you here tonight. What I will do is, as we are getting this is recorded and it's going to be distributed to 300 people in our community. Without any further ado, I'll stop waffling and I will mute myself so you can get to know this wonderful man. Thank you so much for being with us, Doug.
Well, thank you, Liz. And thank you guys for all coming along. Really appreciate it. And I don't know where you're all from, but I'm going to find that out in a minute. But before we do, let me just try and get some slides in. So I've got some slides, and I do a lot of presentation skills training, and I always say it's about the audio, the visual, and the kinesthetic in terms of anything in terms of communication to create an experience for people. So I do speak without slides. I've done it with my TED talk, everything like that, but I do like slides. So I've got a few here that I'm going to show you. Can I have a thumbs up if everybody can see that? Yes, perfect, excellent, great stuff. Okay, so obviously today we're going to be talking about charging yourself up for success, energizing your life, work, and relationships. And it is obviously the same title as my book. I use this with many people all around the world in terms of speaking about this topic. And if anybody wants to buy my book, it's obviously on Amazon, but it's in all the different places as well, all the different shops, Barnes & Noble, Waterstones, and all that kind of stuff. So today, as I said, I'm going to be talking about how to charge yourself up for success. And I always believe in the most important thing in life, and I don't know if you want to write in the chat box what you think is the most important thing in terms of either being a leader or creating sales or creating anything in terms of positivity with other people in life. Anybody want to put anything in the chat box? Well, guess what that is? I'm looking at the chat box. I can't see anything coming up at the moment. Let me just see if I can get the chat box. Authenticity. Yep, that's a pretty good one, Chrissy. Like that. Alignment. Yes, Liz, very much so. Anything else? Truth. Yes, absolutely. Love for me. Absolutely. I have love is lots of vibrant energy as a acronym. Creating relationships. There we go. Leslie gets the prize. Relationships is the most important thing. Integrity, James. Thank you very much. Yes, absolutely. Leslie gets the prize. So massive prize going to Leslie for relationships. And as you can see here, I have a ship, and actually this is a boat. It's actually my dad's boat. He sailed the Atlantic in his 60s, I must say, which is fair play to him, with two other guys who were older than him at the time as well. So they did it twice, and they were in this particular small boat right across the Atlantic from the Caribbean across to Ireland the first time and then across to Lisbon the second time. And I always say, in terms of the word relationship, you can break it down into three different parts. So there's a relay in terms of we need to consciously communicate with other people or actively listen, remembering that we have two ears and one mouth and using them there in that proportion. So you need to relay your shuns, your, as you can see here, communications, presentations, intentions, expectations, or whatever it is, to make sure you can put yourself and your team, or yourself and your clients, if you're a salesperson, on board that ship traveling in the right direction. And that means also, in terms of if you have a mission state for the company, you need to align goals towards those and then align your staff towards those as well. But the biggest shun that people make, anyone tell me what that is in the chat box? What's the shun that they make by mistake? Anybody? Anybody at all in the chat box? Waiting, let's just have a look at the chat box here. 4 new messages. Let me swing down. Boom. Assumption. Leslie wins again. And Leslie, have you heard me speak before? I think you must have done. Assumptions, exactly. Or presumptions is a very good one as well, Karen. Yeah. So assumptions and presumptions. And when we assume, if you take that word, you make an ass out of you and me. And that's why, what is the best thing we can do? Well, I'll save you time. It's to ask questions. And when you can ask questions, you can understand other people much better. And let's face it, we're a product of our parents, preachers, teachers, and past relationships and experiences. And that means we all see things in different ways and different perspectives. So if we can ask conscious questions to understand how the other person thinks, speaks, and acts, then that gives us an idea of how we can relay our communications or our presentations or intentions across to them so they can understand. Because I don't know how many people are here because I can't see it on the screen, but let's say there was 49 people I saw signed up earlier on. There's going to be 48 different perspectives of what I'm saying today. So it's very important to make sure that you understand the other person rather than just pushing your way of thinking and speaking and acting as well. So, firstly, before I go into a little bit about me, I'd love to know where are people calling in from today? Whether it's across the UK or across the world, put your city in, put your country in, tell everybody where you are, and let's just have a little bit of an idea. So, the Harrogate, love Harrogate, Nottinghamshire, London, Holmford, Sussex, Walsall, Newcastle, anywhere else, USA, Texas, fair play. My book is actually comes from Texas. Warrington, Carrickfergus, Isle of Man, Melton Mulberry, Sussex, beautiful. Lots of great areas all around the country, all around the world. And, you know, it's really lovely to have so many people from all over the place coming. So thank you, thank you, thank you, as they say. I used to live in Surrey myself, in just near Epsom. Also lived in various different places in London. But I am Irish. I had the accent beaten out of me as a kid during that time. But now that you've all introduced yourselves, I hope you don't mind if I just do a little introduction just so you have an idea who I am as well. Can I have a thumbs up on the screen if that's okay? Just give me a thumbs up. Let me see someone. Okay, thank you. I always say, and I'm going to, no, I'll save that for later on, but I always say it's good to ask before you just presume that I can start telling everybody it's okay. So as you can see, I worked in the investment world. So I was working in the investment world for 21 years. I built some businesses up. While I was at Columbia Threadneedle, you can see here, I built a business up from 50 million per annum sales to 1.75 billion. And I was in the Times and the Independent on the right-hand side, the Times on the left-hand side. And it all looks like a bed of roses in terms of success. But actually, it wasn't in some ways. Because during that time period, I'm sure a lot of you remember 2008, when the markets fell through the floor. A few thumbs up for anyone who remembers 2008? Yep, a few there, fantastic. And when I was there, I was actually a sales director at Threadneedle, and we were very much into our hedge funds. And hedge funds have a very high AMC, that's annual management charge. And at that point in time, we lost 3.5 billion in hedge fund money that just walked out the door. And at that point, our profitability went massively down. We had to lay people off. And at that point, I didn't realize how empathetic I was into honing into other people's energies. And I got very stressed, and that stress led to ailments, to doctors, to specialists, to 2 operations that went wrong, 4 years of chronic pain, where literally I felt like I was being punched in the stomach. And it was not a pleasant period at all during that time whatsoever. And during that time, then at the end of it in 2013, I ended up having a near-death experience. I got the norovirus. Anyone know what the norovirus is? It's like a few nods there. It's like a stomach bomb. And after 10 days of serious dehydration, and with the operations that I had, you didn't want to get the norovirus, I can tell you that. After 10 days of serious dehydration, literally running at 100 miles an hour to the toilet 10 times a day, my electrolytes were down to virtually zero. And at that point, I called NHS Direct because I was having heart problems. And the ambulance came, ECG said heart, blood pressure had doubled. I was rushed down to St Helier, just in Sutton in Surrey. And at that point then, they thought there was a blockage in the gut. And they rushed me down to X-ray. And on the way down to X-ray, I actually suddenly passed out and passed away. And I was encapsulated in this amazing feeling of love, energy, and connection. Nothing like I'd ever felt before. There was no man with a beard, but there was this living, conscious energy that I was surrounded with and bound with. Nothing like I'd ever felt before. And obviously, I came back. Otherwise, I wouldn't be speaking to you all here today. And but I did get insights. There was no voice, but there was a knowing, and that knowing said I needed to change my life in some way or form. And I didn't know what to do. I went and did a church course called the Alpha Course. Anyone? I don't know if anybody's done the Alpha Course. It's like a Bear Grylls had done the Alpha Course, so I thought it was good enough for Bear Grylls, ex-SAS. Probably good enough for me. So I went to do this Alpha course, and I turned up. It was a Church of England course. Turned up the first day, walked in, didn't know if it was for me because it was obviously all about the Bible and all that kind of stuff. And I came out and I said to the universe or whatever you believe in God, and I said, look, give me a sign. And 2 days later, I was helping a friend of mine with cancer. And I said to him, maybe, we all talk about body, mind, and soul stuff. I said, I haven't really discussed much of that before, but maybe you should do this course that I was considering doing. And that night, I went running with my dog. The dog tripped me up out of the blue. I used to play Premier League hockey. And the dog tripped me up, went flying over the dog, cut my hand and knee all over the place, blood all over the place. And when I looked at my hands afterwards, I had 2 infinity signs, one there in the cut, one there in a cut, and across here in like cuts, I had the letters of the cross, INRI. It was big I, big N, small r, small I. So it was like Jesus of Nazareth here, not really king of the Jews, but go back and do that course. And that was my sign to go and do that. Did that, got into that, but then thought about when I had my near-death experience and I was encapsulated in that energy, I felt that that energy would never alienate or discriminate against anybody in this world. And I feel that religions are like rivers to the sea being God, universal energy, Allah, whatever you believe in, it doesn't really matter. It's all about love. And I believe that, whatever way you go down, it's all a beautiful path. So based on that, I decided to look into a few other things as well. And I studied everything from Jainism, Judaism, Kabbalah, Buddhism, everything. And at that point, gradually, I decided to get into spirituality, healing, become a master teacher, healer of 5 modalities of healing, selfishly to heal myself first, I have to say, but then discovered I was able to heal a few other people as well along the way. And then the healing turned into life coaching, mental health work. That's where I met Liz. I was doing thousands of hours during on Clubhouse, doing mental wellness rooms, helping people with suicide, with depression, anxiety, stress. I've gone through all of those, including having suicidal thoughts in the past now. Now I don't, thank God. Now I'm much more in line with my true heart self rather than my ego fear self, which is what I try and help other people to do, to align to their heart self now and stuff. And as you can see, I've changed now out of the corporate world, out of the hedge fund world, and moving now into that as well. There's a few more chats. Let me see if I can get into the chats again. If I can't actually see my cursor, there it is. A few more chats coming through. Melton Brobery, sorry, squeeze down. I love you. I told you Doug is amazing. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Whatever happened to Clubhouse, Mark? Exactly. Whatever happened? Apparently it's back up and running, but I haven't really got on there myself. I've got too much to do. So during that time period, actually, during the pandemic, I wrote a book as well, Charge Yourself Up to Success, hence speaking here now. Won a few accolades with Global Woman Awards and stuff like that. And I've utilized, my knowledge that I share to help as many people as possible. And that's my goal in life as well. In terms of my service, I work with a lot of people like Dell, Meta, the head of Meta, actually, the Leadership and Life Mastery Summit. If you go onto my website, you'll see there. She came along, and the head of Meta came along on the HR side, and she absolutely loved it. And I work with people like that as well. Leinster Rugby Club I've worked with before, and many others as well. And you can see what I do there. So I'm just not going to go through it, but I do sales training, leadership training, presentation skills training, performance optimization and productivity training, and workplace well-being, as well as being a healer and mental health professional as well. So the question is, though, how do we make success in life or business? And I love my acronyms. As I said earlier on, I mentioned love, which is lots of vibrant energy. I have a MAKE acronym, and some of you may have seen this before, and it is mindset, actions, knowledge, and energy. And in terms of mindset, we all talk about that. I know you guys do. I know Liz very well. I know a few of you as well. And mindset is so important, obviously, in terms of getting yourself in the best possible state so you can motivate yourself to be the best person you can be, but also motivate your clients to buy and your staff to work as hard as they possibly can. Actions is understanding where you are and where you're looking to go to. And in business, obviously, it's important to have a business plan in place. I remember when I was working in the corporate world, my business plan would be put in place at the start of the year. It would go into the cupboard. The boss would never look at it until the end of the year. It would come out for bonus time, and we'd have a quick look. Yep, you did that, you didn't do that, and that was about it. But really, business plans should be put in place as a work plan. So you put targets in place, not just for the year, but also the quarter, the month, the week, and then you put daily processes, procedures, and systems in place, leading you towards those targets. And that can really help align you in terms of your mission and your goals into smaller tasks to align you in the right direction. And that's why goals are so important, to give you direction. And that's why mission, in terms of having a mission statement, is so important. As I said, my mission statement is help people to connect to their heart self rather than their head self and find out whatever true mission it is in life, and then me help you get there. In what form that might be, I don't know until I talk to you. Also, in terms of actions, it's very important to find out your client avatar. Find out who you really should be focusing on. You can spend the same amount of energy on the same different people and get very different results. And I'm going to talk about that later on as well. And then actions is also about making sure that you manage your time carefully so that you put the most amount of time in to get the best results. Sorry, the most amount of creativity in to get the best results. And then knowledge is know your client, know your product, know your industry, match your client needs to your USPs. But knowledge for me is also about awareness, and it's particularly self-awareness. But in business, it's people awareness, market awareness, client awareness. And so that you can utilize all that states of awareness in terms of emotional intelligence to put yourself in the best possible state to get the best possible results, which we'll talk about as well. And then finally, energy. I've employed so many people as a head of sales and C-level exec in terms of PhDs, MBAs, all these types of people, and it hasn't been those who've been the most successful. It's been those ones who get up in the morning and want to really rip it apart, make a difference in the world, and make some impact, and that comes from positive energy as well. And the highest energy, which I was mentioning, is love, in terms of lots of vibrant energy. So I'm going to be going through all of these different parts, breaking them down, giving you a little bit more insights as well to give you a bit of knowledge about all these different things. Now, mindset. Mindset, I don't know if everybody's seen me speak before, but you will have seen this particular slide. Happier staff, according to Forbes magazine, are 20% more productive. Happier salespeople, 37% more productive. Not sure how they come up with that particular 37%, but anyway. And then Fortune magazine show that the top 100 places to work for in terms of the happy factor, their stock market returns went up 14% per annum between this particular point in time, according to the article. And those outside of it, only 6%. And being a fund manager guy, I actually am a proper government certified fund manager. I've got the IMC, the investment management certificate, and the investment advice certificate. I was a little bit skeptical about this particular thing. So I had a look the day before Thanksgiving, the day before Easter, the day before Independence Day, and the last 2 weeks of the year in terms of the Santa rally. And actually, the stock market generally in those time periods goes up 80 to 90% of the time, as you can see here. Why is that? Anybody want to put it in the box why that might be? Anybody at all? Anybody know? Why is that? Let me have a look in the chat box, see if there's anything coming up. My chat box is not coming up. Now it is. Anybody at all? Why is that? Nobody putting anything? I'll give you 5 more seconds, then I'll answer that. Oh, people are feeling happy. Exactly, Lorna. There we go. Excitement and prosperity. Yeah, exactly, Arnold. Exactly. So yeah, so it's positive people. Christmas bonus, Leslie, love that. That's true. Actually, I used to get my bonus in March, April, so I don't know. Yeah, fantastic. People are more optimistic. Absolutely. Yeah, positive people produce positive results, and that's absolutely key. So what I always say in terms of the most important thing in life is the results, and the most important thing in your business are the results. And the results that you get come from the actions that you take. And the actions you take come from the decisions that you make. And the decisions that you make come from the habits that you create. And the habits that you create come from your mindset, which is the way you think, the way you speak, and the way you act. So if you can improve on these, change these, you can get into the best possible state and create more positive results as well. Now, that's not always easy, right? How many of you here, like me recently, I was in South France last week, staying in a beautiful villa. If anybody follows me on social media, you've seen it. It was a beautiful thing. It had a swimming pool and tennis court just near the sea in Antibes. It was gorgeous. And not far away from Roman and Abramovich's big house. Anyway, and during that time, I always say that the most important thing is when we go on holiday, quite often, when we get back from holiday, we have to drag ourselves out of bed, drag ourselves into the office, and we sit there looking at the screen. What the bleep are we doing here? Anybody had that? Hands up? Or put a yes in the chat box? Yep, I can see a few hands going up. Yep, absolutely. We all do, right? We all have that. And a few chat boxes, yes, as well. And look, it's very normal. And yet, when we're going on holiday, the reverse scenario, and if you're like me, you're up to 3 a.m., normally packing lastminute.com, and then you forget your underpants and have to wear the same ones inside out, back to front all week long. Anyway, so what happens is when you're going on holiday, you tend to spring out of bed, spring into a taxi, spring into the airplane, and spring into the swimming pool at the other end with loads of energy because you're aligned to something that you really love doing. And that's so important in terms of business and in life to really find what that sense of love is that you have for what you do. What is your purpose? Or can you find that sense of purpose? My purpose, was it to be a super duper hockey player? I used to play Premier League hockey. Was it to inspire the world and become the best healer and best CEO? Is it to have a great relationship with my partner? Or is it to be a good dad to my kids and a good family member? It's up to you, really, but you need to find your purpose. And in terms of that, I always suggest, if you want to find what your purpose is, a good way of looking at it is to write down, you can do this now if you want, or you can do it afterwards, is to write down what you truly love and enjoy doing. What are you passionate about doing? And then what are you gifted about doing as well? What has God gifted you in this lifetime in some way or form? So what do you love doing? What are you gifted doing? And how can you utilize those to add value to people in some way or form? Or, or I've spoken on stage in front of 4,500 people at one stage. And I used to have a radio show called Inspirational People, Inspirational Stories on Dublin City FM. So if I was to put you on stage in front of 4,500 people and beam it out on my radio show to say 8 billion people around the planet, what would you speak about if you were 90 years of age? What would you be most passionate about? What legacy would you like to leave? And when you know what that is, can you reverse engineer yourself back to where you are today and work out, who do I need to collaborate with? What do I need to learn? Who do I need to model to be worthy enough to stand on that stage, give that speech, and leave that legacy? And that's a really good way as well of finding out what your path is. However, some of us have different things. Some of us go through, like me, divorce. Or how many people, anybody in the chat box, have you gone through divorce? Have you gone through an ailment? Have you gone through a life-changing thing in some way or form? Put it in the chat box, say yes. Yeah, I'm sure you have. Look, I'm just getting here. There's my, there we go. Yep. Let me just go down here. Yes, 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 Karen. Yes, Deepa. Yes, Chrissy. Many, says Chrissy. Wow. Yes, Nikki. Yes, Angela. We all have, right? We've gone through, all of us. Yes, says Stan. A few. Good on you. Look, we all have gone through something in life, some mess, or some mess that we can turn into a message to give it meaning to help others in some way or form. And I think that's so important, to be able to utilize, look at what you've gone through and turn that tragedy into a triumph in some way or form, and turn and change the perspective of what you've gone through. And my cursor's disappeared again, so I need to find it so I can turn the chat box off. Here we go. There it is. Okay. So, and the last thing, though, I will say, I was working in the investment management world, and at the time I thought it was transactional. The time I thought, what am I doing? Am I just popping in, getting money and taking it from one institution to another? And actually, but really, what I was actually doing, if I think about it precisely, is we had great performance. We had great funds. So I was helping that granny or grandpa, retire younger, buy a better retirement home, or have a happier life. So what is the energetics of what you do and how it benefits an end granny or grandpa, mother or father, brother or sister, or son and daughter in some way or form? And when you know what that is, it might give you a little extra spring in your step when you get out of bed and go and do whatever you might do. So there's just a few ideas that might help you find that sense of purpose. Now, we can have purpose, we can have relationships, but some of us carry a bit of baggage. I don't know, how many people, hands up, who has maybe a little bit of baggage like me, divorce or something like that. You go into a relationship, you have kids, and sometimes it can be tough on the new partner and everything like that. Raise hands there, Lorna, exactly. We all have, right? And it's tough sometimes. And sometimes we have little triggers, little traumas, little parental programs that we sometimes play. And sometimes we don't even see them ourselves. So I'm going to give you a way of potentially getting rid of those. So the first thing, I suggest you write this down if you want to, it might help you. So the first thing you can do is have a look and write down, in a state of self-awareness, anything that you think you sabotage yourself with. And it could be procrastination, it could be fear of not being good enough, fear of not being loved, it could be not feeling worthy, whatever it might be, or it could be not actively listening enough. Sometimes us men, we tend to be fix-its and try and fix things rather than actually listening to our partners. So it's very important to do that, by the way, gentlemen. Anyway, so what is it that you do that doesn't benefit you or doesn't serve you in the best form in some way or form? And when you know what they are, write them down. Now, there is also the problem is sometimes we don't see what's in ourselves, and sometimes we need to see what's outside of ourselves reflecting back. And I would also suggest, if you pick 5 people in your life and choose a mum or dad, even if they're passed away, and write down, of those 5 people, what do you think they sabotage themselves with? Or what do you not like about them in terms of their traits? So it might be a controlling parent, a selfish parent. It might be something like that, whatever it might be, write them down. And I believe that your vibe attracts your tribe. I also believe you choose your parents when you come into this lifetime as well. So have a look at that in a state of awareness to try and understand what's reflecting back. Because quite often what happens is we point the finger at others in blame, saying it's all them. We forget when we point the finger, there's actually 3 pointing back at us. So when you can take responsibility for your own change, it's amazing how the people around you change as well. And in my book, I have another acronym, which I utilize because when I do my coaching, quite often people come into me and they say, oh, my boss or my ex-boss or my ex-partner was a right narcissist. And I think that word is overused. It's amazing, actually. I do find it quite giggly when I look at so many people quite often on social media blatantly say that their ex-husband or wife was a right narcissist. And actually outing your husband or wife, especially when you've got children with them as well, on social media is an act of narcissism. But I don't think they realize that as well. So what I always say that the word narcissist in terms of an acronym actually could mean neglected awareness, reflecting conditions in suppressed self, instigating soul transition. And what I mean by that is sometimes the hardest people that come into our lives are sometimes the greatest gifts for us because they reflect back maybe things that are suppressed in our subconscious or our heart that we need to release and let go of. So instead of blaming them, appreciate them and send them love so that they've come into your life for a reason. And when you know what that reason is, and you can own what you see in them and in yourself as well, you might just find you heal something for yourself or energetically for them as well. Thirdly, in this exercise is like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Phone a friend, ask a friend or meet with a friend and tell them to tell you everything they don't like about you or everything they think that you need to self-improve on. And tell them it's an ego exercise to self-improve and they would be doing you a favor if they're authentic about it. I chose my dad. And my God, was he authentic about it. I had to use 2 pieces of A4 paper. My pen almost ran out, and it was the most authentic grilling I ever got. And he was a dad who absolutely did not appreciate me moving out of a very, really good job in terms of head of sales and in the papers and all that kind of stuff, and then suddenly start doing what I'm doing now. Initially healing, and then he kind of liked a bit more what I'm doing now, working with other people. So yeah, so that's just a few ideas. And once you've done that, once you've written all this down, get the piece of paper and own everything. By the way, own it all. Because even if you don't think it's in you, you might heal it for someone in your family. So own it all. And then take that list. I had 28 in my list. I had one client who had 52. And own it and sit with a friend or a coach like myself and voice it out loud. So you might put your hand on your heart with passion and emotion. Remember, you need emotion, energy and motion when you say these things. At times, don't say you actually are, but at times I procrastinate. At times I have fear of not being worthy. At times, and so on. And go through it with absolute passion. I had one guy in Dallas and he was doing this with his barbecue ready because he knew what I was going to do. And I told him then he had to rip it up and he had to either throw it down the toilet, flush it down the toilet, or put it on the barbecue, whatever it is. And he had to do a ceremony to get rid of this. And he had the barbecue ready. He took me outside with his computer, put it down, throw the piece of paper in, burnt it. And then have an I am opposites list ready. So I am successful. I am worthy of love. I am focused and determined. I am actively listening to other people, whatever it might be. And actually, I always say to people, do you want a kind of a thin list? Put it next to the mirror where you do your teeth every morning and say them out loud for a minimum of 21 days, preferably 60 days, to voice it back in to the subconscious mind. It's amazing how apparently it's so powerful that is. By voicing it out loud, these affirmations, they go back in here and you can create neuroplasticity within the brain to be able to think, speak, and act in a different way. When I was in the investment world, I still do it now, I'm going to meetings and I might go in for this and I go, I'm going to have a fantastic meeting. It's going to be an amazing meeting and get on really well with everybody. I'm going to get loads of new clients, whatever it might be. You'd say that over and over and over again. Obviously not out loud too much with the people around you because they think you're mad. But if you can say this out loud and put it back in there over a period of time, you might start believing it as well. It's like self-hypnosis. And I'm sure a lot of you are coaches, so you know this anyway. So utilize that and then use a self-check mechanism on a daily basis, going over and checking, because it doesn't happen straight away because we're so much programmed in this old-fashioned way that we need to look at ourselves in terms of the interactions that we have and think to ourselves, okay, I met with Liz the other day. How was I thinking in terms of that conversation? How was I behaving in terms of that conversation? And how was I feeling in terms of that conversation? And what worked and what didn't work? And then that way, through a sense of awareness and understanding over time, you can catch yourself out. And by catching yourself out over time, you might just find yourself slowly self-improving. It doesn't happen straight away. Even if you've done it religiously for 60 days, it doesn't happen. And it's amazing how many people who have done this. I had the head of Dell, well, you'll see actually in a minute, he put an amazing testimony up on LinkedIn saying how good it was. Anyway, so hopefully that makes sense. If anybody doesn't, you can obviously email me afterwards. Now, we have the sense of purpose. We get to that stage where we're ready and we've looked at our past and we've got rid of that baggage, so we've got everything out of the way. And now we've got our goals aligned. And I'll talk a little bit about goals in a minute, but maybe we have some goals aligned to where we want to go. And we have a business idea now, because sometimes we can get the wrong business ideas. We can get the wrong direction when we still have this vibration inside of us of these past traumas. So if we can get rid of all that crap, and then start focusing on what we want rather than what we don't want, that gives us more alignment to our true heart self rather than our head self. And that way, then we can start communicating with our clients and our staff in the right direction. Now, getting on stage and speaking energetically can sometimes be a little bit scary. You know, people say death, divorce, and speaking on stage can be the scariest things they go through. And, you know, I've got a few tips that I'm going to give you that I utilize when I'm speaking on stage that might just help you in terms of communicating with others. There's a few chat things here. I'm going to try to have a look at the chat box here. If I can get my... I don't know why the cursor disappears when you're doing... Oh, there it is. Okay. Holy shit, this is scary. Says they're going down. Shall we do it together? Be brave. We can. Yes, absolutely. We can do it. We can do it together if you want. Maybe next time, though, because it could take some time. Realistically, it could be a really good thing to do for yourself. You can do it with a friend, do it together, whatever you like. So these are some tips and tricks that might help you on stage. Now, the first thing I mentioned about the heart self rather than the head self. Before I go on stage, I always do this. And what I do is I put my hand on my heart and I say out loud, normally in the toilet because I don't want to do it in front of other people, and hopefully nobody's outside the cubicle listening in. And I say, I am Doug Gordon. I am my heart. Please let me connect the hearts of the audience in order to bless rather than impress and add as much value. And what I'm doing there is I'm getting myself out of my head self into my heart self, getting myself out of my place of ego, edging God out, into my place of love. So ironically, I don't mind if I make a mistake because all I want to do is try and bless. And by doing that, hopefully, I might speak more concisely or clearly. So that's why it's a really nice thing to come from your heart space. And if you go out that with that intention in public speaking, in having a serious conversation, maybe with somebody, either a staff member or a loved one, or even just a meeting in the meeting rooms, it's a very good way to start it beforehand as well. Secondly, tiger faces. Anybody done a tiger face before? Hands up. Anybody? No? Maybe? Yeah. And tiger faces. So I always say, and I did this, I was speaking... I'm 50 now, but when I was 24, I was working for HSBC Asset Management. I was speaking at a big conference. There's about 300 people there. They're all financial advisors and solicitors. And I was, you know, they're already in the room, in the auditorium, they're speaking, and I was up next. I think I had about 20 minutes to go. And I was in the toilet, and I was doing tiger faces in the mirror. I was going, "Rawr, I can do this, rawr." And just as I was giving my rawr, a financial advisor walked in through the toilet door, looked at me and goes, "Ha! Tiger faces." Used to do that myself. And I just felt a complete prick and, well, very embarrassed. And I went back then, 20 minutes later, I was standing on the stage, and that guy happened to be then sitting in the front row, and he gave me a little wink to wish me good luck, but actually it really embarrassed me. But anyway, tiger faces are a very good way to rile yourself up, get yourself into the state, get the energy going, and get on stage. And positive affirmations obviously go with that as well, in terms of saying, I'm going to be fantastic, I'm going to have a fantastic speech, I'm going to connect the audience in the best way possible, whatever it might be. Positive affirmations, as we were discussing a minute ago. Gratitude is the attitude. Obviously, you know, I'm very grateful for you guys coming here today and listening to me. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And how many people here have children? Hands up. Anybody? Anybody have kids? Yes, we all have a few kids. Yeah, absolutely. Kids are amazing. However, if you give a child a present and they're not grateful, you don't feel like giving them anything else. So your own subconscious mind, if you are not grateful for all that you've created, the good and the bad, then there's potentially, you know, why would it give you anything else? So be grateful for everything in life. I believe, having had the near-death experience, Einstein says that energy never dissipates, it just moves from one form to another. And my belief is just my belief. I believe that based on that premise, in terms of this game of life, why would you just come down as you or I? Why would you not come down as the king, the queen, the prince, the pauper, the invalid, the Olympian, to experience life in different ways and different means, to enjoy the entirety in different perspectives of this wonderful thing that we call life. And if in that case that is true, and you are having a tough time in life, maybe pat yourself on the back because maybe you've played this game of life so often that you're testing yourself the ultimate, like a PlayStation game, to see if you can get through all this shit and come out the other side still as the most emotionally intelligent version of yourself. And remember, I work with a lot of people in terms of suicide. I had one little girl, 15, came on to me. She was about to take her life. And I said to her, look, you have the gremlin on one side, you have the angel on the other side. I truly believe that you are an angel, because if you're truly testing yourself to this ultimate, to this hardest test, maybe you're testing yourself. Maybe you're really pushing yourself. And if you can really realize how wonderful you are and how many times you've played this game, then really go for it and stuff like that. And I also say to people who are about to take their lives as well, that I truly believe that you chose this life for a reason. And if you take it away from you, it'll be like Groundhog Day and you have to come down and redo it all over again. So why not get rid of it this time rather than having to do it again and again and again? So gratitude is the attitude. And in terms of getting on stage, we've all seen Tony Robbins, I'm sure, in the Netflix movie, I'm Not Your Guru, bouncing up and down on the trampette, stretching, jumping around, getting those release of cortisone, and also visualizing. Visualizing, I have a vision board inside. Vision board always shows, me on a big yacht, or me in different places around the world, and everything like that. It's amazing how powerful that is. I have got on my vision board and my I am grateful statements, a lot of stuff that's already happened, and a lot of stuff that hopefully will happen as well. So visualize what you want and you bring more of it to you. In fact, do you know what? I was speaking at the Institute of Directors of India. I was the main keynote speaker a couple of years ago at their global convention in London. We spoke at the House of Lords the first day and the snazzy hotel on the second day. And I was surrounded by beautiful Indian people. And there was the chairman of Oil and Gas India, there was the CEO of Cobra Beer, there was lords and ladies there, and many other amazing Indian people. And at the time, we were talking about sustainability and climate change. And also, I hadn't seen my daughter because she was suffering a little bit because of the divorce for a little while. And I was wishing that she'd reach out to me. All of these thoughts going through my head, putting myself in the energy of these thoughts. I left the conference. I went to the airport. I got on the plane. I sat in the window seat. I sat down. And within about 2 minutes, a man came down and sat next to me in the center seat with his daughter, 1 year of age, sitting on his lap. She started reaching out to me. So a daughter reaching out to me. I got speaking to him and he told me that he was a consultant in terms of sustainability and climate change. And to his right in the aisle seat was his wife, who was Indian. So in the energy is something and you bring it more to you as well. So I always say, put yourself in the energy of what you want and you'll bring more of it to you as well. Meditation, I teach meditation. I have meditations to help people connect to their higher self. I do healing, as I said earlier on, in terms of a master teacher healer of 5 modalities of healing. I help people clean off their energy so they're more aligned to their highest, best version of them. I have, solicitors come to me every week. They seem to have a lot of energy they need to get rid of, and many other things as well. And then in terms of if you are doing a speech like this, practice, 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 so that you can then utilize it and deliver it in the best possible way. And know your audience. If you can go to a particular place, I was speaking at a particular thing a few years ago, and Stedman Graham was speaking at it, as in Oprah's other half, and Joe Dispenza was speaking at it as well. And they both did fantastic speeches. However, Stedman Graham was on at one stage and he mentioned a particular story that I've heard of before, but he mentioned the story about the monotony of life, getting up, doing your teeth, going into work, getting on the train, getting into the office, staring at the screen, coming home, getting into bed, going for, whatever it is, again and again and again and again, the same thing over and over and over again, and the boredom of life sometimes. And Joe Dispenza came in 2 speakers later and did exactly the same speech. That for 5 minutes. So I think it's very important to know your audience. Make sure you spend time and having a look at other people. And also when you're speaking on stage, don't just do the scanning around of the audience. Pick people in the audience, make a point to that person, and then move on to the next person. And I teach people this in terms of my presentation skills training, which I do regularly as well in different places. And you can see loads of testimonies on that as well. And I'm going to give you a tip here. These are 2 people that I work with, Pat Quigley, who's the CIO of Dell, and Barry McShane, who was the head of pre-sales at Dell as well. And there's a great story about how I got into Dell and the power of LinkedIn. I know you're all on LinkedIn. So one of the things that I did a few years ago, there's a guy called Angus, I'm not going to tell you his surname, but a super guy, who was the president of Dell at the particular time, it was 2020. And I reached out to him because I heard him speak in a fantastic speak. It was live, actually. And I said to him, Angus, I just want to say that your speech was fantastic. Really enjoyed it. If there's anything I can add value to you in any way or form, I'll be delighted to come into Dell and speak with you if you fancy a coffee. And he came back. I had a radio show at the time, which I'd interviewed amazing people, New York Times bestsellers and famous sports stars. So he knew me, and he said, Doug, I'd be delighted to meet. So I went in a couple of weeks later into Dell. But before I did this, and whenever you're meeting with someone, I think it's really important. I'm sure a lot of you do that. Is not just research the company, but research the person. And I researched Angus, and I saw that he was the president of the American Chamber of Commerce in Europe. I also saw that he sat on the Special Olympics Committee for Ireland. I also saw he was a Munster rugby fan, and I also saw he had two children. So I went in and I asked him all about his children. I said, I've got two children. So you've got two children. Do you go to Munster? I'm a Leinster fan. But I know Frankie Sheeny used to captain Ireland and captain Munster. Do you know him? And he did. I said, I see you're also part of the Special Olympics Committee. I'm part of the Wooden Spoon, an ambassador for that charity, which is to do with handicapped children as well. Maybe we could work together in some way or form. And I've spoken in the Dublin, the Galway, the Tanzanian, and the London and the European Chamber of Commerce doing speeches. Maybe I could do a speech at your American Chamber of Commerce across Europe as well to add value. So what he's seen then very quickly that I'd done my research, I'd shown interest in him, and I connected with him on a heart level with things that really mattered to him rather than just on a business level. So he actually had took me into the coffee shop, and I think he was only going to bring me there, but then very rapidly brought me up to his office upstairs. And when we went in, the first thing I did is I said to him after a little bit more of small talk, I said, Angus, is it okay if I tell you a little bit about my business? And as you might note earlier on, I asked you, was it okay if I tell you a little bit about myself? And the reason why I did that in a meeting and also in a presentation is it engages your subconscious mind to say yes and actually to listen to me. Because if I just started ranting on about how great I am and how great my business is, you might switch off. But also, in terms of a meeting, it's a very good thing to do because what you're doing by saying, is it okay to tell you a bit about my business? You're actually giving the power and the control back to the person. And obviously, presidents of Dell and managing directors like to have a little bit of control at times. So you're giving it back to them as well. So he feels he's in control and he's going to listen even more intently as well. So it's a very small thing, but makes a massive difference sometimes as well. Then, when I went in to talk about myself, I never once talked about myself. I took LinkedIn recommendations like these and went straight in saying what I did for other people. As you can see here, I mentioned earlier on the awareness techniques. You can see down here, you can see Pat says here, leadership and using his mindset awareness techniques. Pat, interestingly, he is 63 years of age now. When I was working with him, he was 61. He was a senior guy, senior vice president. He did not want to do that, looking at himself and having a look inside him. He said, Doug, this sounds like a load of bollocks. I'm not going to do this. And I said, look, Pat, Dell are paying you, Dell are paying me. Let's just do it. When he did it, and when he did it properly as well, I have to say, he actually found that he got the best 360 he's ever got. He found that his relationship with his wife improved. He found that his dad and him, who hadn't really been speaking for a long time, suddenly started speaking and playing golf again. And one of his oldest friends that he hadn't spoken to in years from school contacted him and invited him to his daughter's wedding. Why is all that? Because his vibe changed, because he thought differently, he spoke differently, and he acts slightly differently because he became aware of his triggers, his traumas, and his parental programs. And that's why it's so powerful in this. But this is why this is so powerful as well. And LinkedIn is a powerful tool in terms of stuff that can help you in terms of sales, which I'm sure you all know. I'm not going to go through. I've got another presentation I do about sales and LinkedIn, but it's not in this one. I haven't got time. Next bit of the make thing is actions, taking massive action. This is in Universal Studios over not in California, sorry, in Florida. And as you can see there, it's not a real dinosaur, obviously. So I'm going to tell you a story that will emphasize how important the power of action is and the type of action that you might be thinking about that might help you. So, and please steal this story if you want. It's something that I've made up, but you might end up finding it useful for your own business as well, especially if you're a coach. So there was a young man, and we'll just say, because I'm in Ireland at the moment, young man walking down the coast of Galway. And he looked over the cliff edge, and he looked over and he saw these three incredible looking stones, like the ones you can see here. And he bent down, he picked these stones up, and he took them back to his dad, and he was only 16. He said, Dad, look at these stones. What will I do with them? And his dad says, I'll tell you what, son, why don't you take the first stone Go down to the local market, make a market stall, make it look pretty, put one stone there. If someone wants to buy it, don't say anything, just show the peace sign and say nothing else. So he goes down to the market, he makes a market stall, makes it look pretty, puts a stone there. A lady comes up after about 5 minutes and goes, wow, that's such a beautiful stone. How much do you want for it? €2. Oh, deal. Thank you very much. And off she goes. She's very happy. He goes back to his dad. He goes, Dad, wow, that was amazing. All I do with the next one. And he says, well, why don't you go down to the local dime merchant? He sells precious stones. Go in there. If he wants to buy it, show him the peace sign and say nothing else. He goes down to the dime merchant, shows the dime merchant. The dime merchant goes, wow, that's one beautiful stone. How much do you want for it? €200. Deal, done. Thank you very much. He goes off, he goes back to his dad. He says, Dad, that was amazing. €200 for that one. What will I do with the last one? He says, I'll tell you what, son, why don't you go down up to Dublin, go to the National History Museum, go to the Precious Stone Department, find the professor, show the professor. If the professor wants to buy the stone, show him the peace sign and see what happens. He goes up, finds the professor goes, wow, what a beautiful stone. How much do you want for it? €20,000. Deal done. Thank you very much. And he goes back to his dad. He goes, Dad, wow, this is amazing. What does this mean? And his dad goes, don't you know, son? If you value what you have to offer and hang around with the right people, you get very different results. And that's why proximity is power. If you put yourself in the right place, the right time, with the right people, you get very different results. When I was in the investment world, with the same presentation, I would go into a financial advisor and I maybe get €1 million or £1 million. I was working in London at the time. If I went into a stockbroker, it would be 5 million. Private banker, 10 million. Asset manager, 50 million. And one institutional pension fund manager, which was SWIP, by the way, Scottish Widows Investment Partnership, which got bought out by Aberdeen Asset Management and then got bought out by Standard Life. They gave me, in one go, 285 million sterling in one deal in one time, based on the same presentation, but just putting myself in a different place with different type of people. And that's why, if you are going down to London or Dublin. So in London, if you're going down to London, instead of going down to the Starbucks or instead of going down to the Costa Coffee, why not go to the Ritz or go to Claridge's and have a coffee there instead? Yeah, pay an extra $10, but you never know who you could be sitting next to and what might happen. I am not a big bloke. I'm 5'8" tall. I went on a CityJet flight from Dublin to London. I put myself in business class, not because I'm flash, but because I put myself in the middle seat between two other people to put myself in the proximity of potential clients. And I sat next to the CEO of Game On Media, a chap called Dave, I'm not going to tell you his surname, and he brought me into his business and paid me £5,000, which was my first ever speaking gig back in January 2018, to speak to his staff as well. So put yourself in the right place, the right time, with the right people, and you get very different results. There's a few chat box things coming up. I'm just going to have a look what's going on there. Times two, times two, times two, times two. Absolutely. Where are we? I paid a tenner for a coffee in the Dorchester last time I was in London. Love it, James. Well done. Yeah, and it's so important because you never know who you could be sitting next to. I sat next to sports stars. I sat next to politicians. And if you're a chatty person like myself and engage with people interested in them, remember we've got 2 ears and 1 mouth and use them in that proportion, it's amazing how you can make friends very, very quickly. So just a little tip there that might help as well. Now, in terms of the make happen, we've gone through mindset, we've gone through actions, a little bit of knowledge that might share, that might help you in some way or form. Now, all of you, I mentioned earlier on, all of you will have some knowledge, either that you skills and knowledge that you can share, or you'll have some mess that you can turn into a message to give it meaning in some way or form. And you can turn, and this is a business in a box idea that some of you probably already have, some of you might not have, so this might give you an idea to help you as well. And watch how I sell as well. Okay, so this is a tip for you that you can utilize as well. So, firstly, I have an online course, bottom left-hand side, as you can see here. It's at training.dougdgordon.com. And you all have something you can do. And what I suggest you could do is you can put a PowerPoint presentation together, maybe just 10 slides, whatever it might be, and put all the points of some kind of ideas that you can help and add value to people in some way or form. And put that there. And I went down to a local hotel, brought a videographer, the videographer videoed it, and then I used the transcript to be the start of my book. And then I took that transcript and I buffered it out, and I produced the book then from that as well. So what you can have here, what I have here, and what you can do here as well, is then have some kind of online course, video course, some kind of book, if possible, or a booklet to go with the online course. And then that way you've got 2 passive income streams as well. and then obviously advertise them through speaking engagements, but also as well through maybe Google ads or Facebook ads or whatever it is. Next, obviously, I know a few of you have podcasts, and you can utilize the podcast to be able to bring people into maybe a mastermind group or engage with them, become friends with them, and then maybe they'll help you get speaking gigs as well. So I've spoken alongside some of my podcasts and radio guests, such as John DeMartini. I've spoken alongside him. I've had him on my radio show 7 times from the Secret film. Lisa Nichols brought me over to Florida to speak at her stage. In front of 1,000 people. And Marissa Peer, I actually had the Leadership and Life Mastery Summit recently. She spoke alongside me, as did Stephen Covey as well, as in Stephen M.R. Covey, who wrote Speed of Trust and Trust and Inspire as well. So you can make friends with these people, but you can bring them into your mastermind group. And through that mastermind group, you're adding value to them, obviously, by doing something like this. And that's exactly what I'm doing here for you guys and Liz. And obviously, there's the potential of maybe me getting a client or 2 out of this, or a book or 2 sold as well. So you can do that as well. And then obviously you can get paid to speak. So I get paid to speak. I've been speaking all around the world. I spoke at summits, conferences, but mostly the thing that I speak at most is companies, because there's hundreds and thousands of companies all around the world. There isn't hundreds and thousands of summits all around the world as well. So that's why I can really help as well. So this is a business in the box idea that any one of you here could do. You could have gone through a divorce. You could have gone through a relationship breakdown. You could be really good at football and know how to kick a ball right in the top corner, or whatever it might be. There's something that you have information-wise in your life that you do differently than other people that you could put together in this format to be able to help people in terms of the knowledge and the ideas, if that makes sense. And there's a message come up. Let me just get down to it. I hope it was good. Yes, absolutely. Now, in terms of all other knowledge as well, everybody know who Dr. Emoto is? Anybody know who Dr. Emoto is? Yeah, a few hands. Just for those who you don't know, Dr. Emoto was nominated for the Nobel Prize. He's got a Wikipedia. He was a Japanese professor, and he did this amazing experiments with water. And rice, but we'll just do the water ones. And what he'd do is he'd get, say, like, I got a bottle of water here, so he might have a container of water, and he'd write on it, love, gratitude, thank you, or disgust or hate. And he would basically give this bottle with the written description on it on the outside to different sets of students who would go into different rooms. And they would speak to the water. They'd say, I love you, I love you, I love you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Hate you, hate you, hate you, whatever it might be. And they do that for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. They give it back to him. He'd put the water into a freezer. He'd take it out after 3 days and he'd have a look at the molecules under the strongest microscope possible and see what they look like. And these are the results. So as you can see, the thank you and the love and the gratitude show these kind of like diamond-like shapes. And the disgust one is all over the place. There's no real symmetry to it. And your body is made up about 60 or 65% water. So if you're hanging around with a bunch of clowns who are being sarcastic or being critical, or you, let's face it, you're the person who talks to yourself the most. Sometimes it can be the most intelligent conversation you have, but you might as well make it positive as well. So you're the person who needs to speak to yourself in a positive way, because your negativity, your negative self-talk can affect you in this possible way. And that means your energy is not going to be aligned as well, and you're not going to have that extra energy to do what you need to do in life, in your relationships, or your business as well. So just something I like to mention before I go into the last part of the Make Acumen, which is all about energy. But before I do, I'd love to know, is there any questions at all that you might like to ask either in the chat box or something like that? Any questions? I'm coming up to my last slide in a minute, so that's why I just wanted to ask. Any questions? I'm just going to go to the chat box just to see if there is. Boom, 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 boom. Must have been the cup. Very good. I love it. No, and the reason why I'm asking you questions now, and you can ask more in the end if you want, is because if you're doing a presentation, I highly recommend you do not save your questions, if possible, to the end. And the reason being is what happens is at the end, I might have done this amazing presentation. You might think it's shite, but amazing presentation. And then at the end, someone asks a completely left field question, maybe about the economy or maybe about something that's going on in the news, Gaza or something like that. And it takes a completely different perspective and way of thinking on the whole session that we've just done. And then people forget, well, what was he talking about? So I always say, ask questions before you summarize, before you give a summary, which I'm about to do in a minute as well. And then that way, you can then summarize at the end to bring people up. Yeah, thank you, Nikki. Yeah, it's a very powerful thing to do in terms of that as well. So, in summary, in terms of energy, The highest form of energy, obviously, is the sun. And the sun, we gleam our sunshine, we gleam our inner light out to people in business, but also in life as well. And as you can see, I have my Gleam acronym here, which is goals. Tasia Valenza was a very good friend of mine. She was on Clubhouse, actually. I don't know if anybody knew Tasia. She was in Star Wars, and she also is a great voiceover actress in Disney films and all that kind of stuff. And Tasia then got me, I was coaching her a little bit in presentation skills. She's done, obviously, amazing actress, but not so good at standing on stage. And then I helped with her husband as well, Harvey. And Harvey was telling me that Tasia had a vision board. And on her vision board, he put this particular house. And this is going back 20 years ago. And 10 years ago, they were moving into a new house. And Tasia went into the garage, Harvey went into the garage and found Tasi's vision board. And sure enough, the house that she'd put 10 years previous on the vision board was the very one they were moving into. So that's why these vision boards are quite powerful, because it means that you can put the goals that you want, and it leads you in energetically, if you look at it regularly, towards those again and again and again. And gratitude, I mentioned earlier on. Other G might be grounding yourself. I think, when I do my presentations, I always make sure I ground myself beforehand, or not wear shoes, so that I'm very grounded as well. And if anybody hasn't seen the Earthing movie, which is free on not Netflix, on YouTube, well worth watching as well in terms of grounding yourself. Very powerful. Learning and letting go. I always say we learn to earn. Tiger Woods has a coach. Cristiano Ronaldo has a coach. Neither of those coaches are better than those two, but the coach can sometimes help you mastermind to a higher level. And that's why sometimes coaches like myself can help you in terms of that as well, in terms of modeling the masters and modeling people who've been there and done that, and might be able to help you get there as well. And what I do in terms of coaches, I help a lot of coaches in terms of their presentation skills. I craft a presentation for them, whatever it is. I work, if you have a look, I work with many people in terms of, you obviously saw the Dell guy as well. I've also worked with Claudia, who I can share as well, Claudia Schemer, who works for one of the top aircraft leasing companies in the world. She's the senior vice president, head of finance, and helping people like that in terms of craft presentations to be able to deliver to the board or deliver to clients as well. So maybe I can help you on that as well. But also L is the power of letting go. I always say the past is history. The future is a mystery. The present is a gift. So live in the now. Regardless of what you're planning for the future, you can't do it in the future. You can only do it now. So plan for now and you get it done. Emotional intelligence is something that I mentioned earlier on, which is about self-awareness, but it's also about that state of creating motivation for yourself, or I prefer the word inspiration, because motivation comes from the word motive, which is a reason, which is outside of you. Inspiration comes from inspire, which comes from inside of you. So if you can be inspired every single day in terms of a sense of purpose, it can really help you as well. Also, empathy and compassion, putting yourself in other people's shoes is part of emotional intelligence, and self-regulation, being able to create win-win in all the interactions that you have in life. I always say that quite often what happens in our interactions, we have loved ones in our life. Say this is you, and this is the loved one, if everybody can see. What happens quite often is your loved one goes off to work, comes back, and might have a bit of crap going on in the office. So they come back with this kind of like a vibration like this. And because we love them, quite often we come and go, oh, darling, can I help you? But then we get wrapped up in this as well. And there's a big blow up in some way or form. So I sometimes say that separateness can sometimes bring togetherness. So that if you can say separate and calm for people in terms of emotional intelligence, you can bring them back into a state of balance and then come back into that togetherness state afterwards as well. Or you can also, when you're getting into that emotion and commotion with other people, whether it be clients or loved ones, is to put yourself out of the situation, onto the 10th floor, looking down as the observer and asking yourself, what am I learning here? How can I improve here? And what can I utilize in this conversation or interaction to be able to help this person or better help myself in some way? And that way you're kind of gamifying life a little bit as well, and not taking it so seriously each individual time. And that can come through emotional intelligence. And I believe emotional intelligence is the most grounded version of consciousness as well. Authenticity, let's face it, if you're your authentic self and you're coming across as that authentic self, people will feel it and they'll trust you more as well. I've spoken on stage with amazing people whether it be, I spoke on stage. I actually interviewed him as well. Niall Quinn, if anybody knows football, Niall used to play. He was Ireland's second greatest scorer in terms of football. He played for Arsenal, Man City, and Sunderland, and super guy. And I then interviewed him. Spent about 3.5 hours. I expected to go to his house and just in and out, but ended up going to his house and spent 3.5 hours. And it's because I think because of the authenticity of really wanting to add value to him, but also make friends with him as well. And he could feel that. And so when you are authentic, it brings trust, and trust will bring you more business. I always, always, always get paid on time. And the reason being is because I'm trustworthy and I believe what you give out, you get back. So when you have problems with people, give them out love. You might just find you get some back as well. Finally, meaning, as I said, is about purpose and also modeling the masters as well. Now, it is important to have a purpose. It is important to have meaning. But remember, I believe the meaning of life is to enjoy life. I believe that the greatest gift that we have in this lifetime is the five senses. The gift of being able to see the sun, the sea, the stars, and the sky, or a loved one. The gift of being able to feel a hug or a kiss. The gift of being able to hear the whistle of the wind or a river running by. The gift of being able to taste chocolate or being able to smell the scent of a rose or somebody that you love. And these are the true gifts in life. And if we can base ourselves down to the basics of understanding how wonderful these actually are, it can sometimes help us and ground us to bring in more as well. So in summary, mindset, actions, knowledge, and energy. And if you can get yourself in the right mindset, take the right actions, learn from where you go from, where you want to be, and put yourself in the most positive energy, you might just find that you make a little bit more success in your life and your business. Thank you very much. So I will do one little sales pitch at the end, which if anybody wants to come along, I do a presentation skills training course. It's a day course. I know you're all abroad, so I do this online. And I do it in person as well, but generally online is what I actually hope for.